Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Jim and Sam Town Square. I'm Scott King. Jim and Sam fans know me from the Forbes articles, and I'm joined, as always, by multi-Emmy Award-winning television producer Chris Cangilla. This episode recapping Week 5 of January 2024, and another great week. I'm really impressed with one guest. We'll get into a lot of good show talk, the dudes in studio, not a lot of guests, and it's kind of been a pattern, and it's kind of right in our wheelhouse, Chris, isn't it?
Yeah, the guests that come on tend to sit in for a little while, and we love that as well, and just be there the whole time. But yeah, it is a little bit of their pattern. But I got to tell you, Scott, I was a little disappointed because this was the Chicago episode week of the Jim and Sam show. They talked about Chicago all the time, and no nod, or as Sam would say, rub for us, the boys, right?
Yeah, need a rub. The guys could use a rub sometimes. Something cool may have happened. We'll get into perhaps later, but and yeah, a lot of Chicago. They've been hinting at a Chicago trip. At first it was based around Jan Terry's documentary, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Now it may be. Now they're kind of talking about they're looking at Jim's schedule. He's going to Bloomington, Illinois, which I looked up for us last night, actually, thinking maybe me and you will do a road trip, 2 hours both ways. I don't know if I can get the wife to settle on that. Hopefully Jim comes to Chicago a little bit later. But yeah, they talk about Chicago. Even if they're just, putting it out there and it's not going to happen, mention the boys, mention the old town square guys kicking the show off, introducing.
Yeah. We should introduce them if they ever do anything publicly, for sure. We're their biggest supporters in this area. But yeah, the Bloomington show, Jim, he's 30 minutes away from Pontiac, Illinois, the home of Wally's. It's right there, for crying out loud. So that they were talking about that and Sam's love from Wally's and how they could go to Wally's. Jim, I'm not sure if Jim's going to fly into Chicago or fly in to maybe Springfield or whatever to come into his Bloomington show. But if he flies into Chicago and he drives down there, he's going to pass it. It's on his left, 30 minutes before you get to Bloomington. So yeah, I hope he gets a chance to go in there. Then they're mapping it out how to go to I-80 truck stop, which I shared with you in our Christmas episode. Same one. And Travis was a little concerned that it might not be in Iowa. He thought it was in Illinois. It's in Iowa. Of course it's in Iowa. It's called Iowa's largest truck stop or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, they mentioned that. So they're maybe trying to do a round trip of going to, Jim show, doing the Wally's and doing the I-80 truck stop. So, who knows? And then, of course, they started talking about Chicago's mayors. You and I both don't live in Chicago proper. We have in the past, but yeah, Chicago's mayors are a little troublesome. What other Chicago things do they talk about?
Well, I'll just say real quick, even though I don't like when people say if you don't live in, you can't say that crime is bad. That's a thing that people in Chicago like to say. Like, you can't say crime is bad if you live outside Chicago. Like,
we have to work there sometimes.
We would like to go there and throw money at the city if they have a nice dinner or see a play with our wives and or our kids. So we can say whatever we want, but that's more of a sore subject for me. But I mean, I don't know. I know Travis hires the interns, but when was the last time you didn't like a Jim and Sam intern?
I'm sure there's parts that we can talk about.
There is, but they lead to great radio too.
Yeah, they do lead to great radio. We're still talking about those guys,
exactly.
Right?
So even the ones you're like, that guy, he's just amazing, amazing bits with him. But this new kid, Anthony, sounds like a super smart guy. Went to Columbia in Chicago, study film studies, I believe was his major there. Ends up getting a master's at Tisch, right? New York,
Tisch.
NYU, Tisch School. Very, very hard to get into. Samuel Wood Roberts was rejected, but
that was a funny story.
I'm sorry, Chris?
I was just saying that was a funny story. You're absolutely right.
It was right. It was funny. But credit to Sam's kind of the ringleader. He gets these guys right in. The listener gets their personality. They have great banter back and forth with Jim and Sam, and Anthony was no reservations, just talked about movies, and he can hang in there with Jim's older movies too. So I already think Anthony's great.
Yeah, he was great, and a lot of references that go, both in Sam's world, in the younger stuff, and they share that, and then he knows the greats, and that Jim always talks about. This is a great film with this actor from this, and he understands that stuff. So yeah, he's going to be a great resource. He's still feeling his way on when to jump in and when not to jump in. I kind of get a sense of, and that's probably a hard thing. God knows when we talk to people, I'm always jumping in a little too much. So finding that balance of when you want to, inject yourself and when you don't, he'll get. But I thought he was great, and it made for a very wrap up the whole Chicago week that Jim and Sam had.
Yes, I definitely agree. And sometimes the extra jump-ins are organic. You got to do it. So speaking of trips, Sam took a trip as well, and it was to Tampa, right, Chris?
Yeah, it was to Tampa for his Not Sam wrestling show and doing I think there was a not a WrestleMania, but what was down there?
Uh,
SmackDown? Was it SmackDown?
or the Royal Rumble, maybe? Was
I
it
don't know, but yeah, he was down there for wrestling as well as doing his show, and he had a special guest. Who'd he have?
It was someone who blew us away like a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, because he had been on the show in so long, and he was so amazing. Just sexting his children, as Sam would say, sending his kids videos of his exploits. DJ Who Kid. DJ Who Kid is absolutely amazing. I love how he's diving right into the wrestling world, and he doesn't fit too well, does he, Chris?
Yeah, I don't think I can even talk about how he doesn't fit. If you want to share that, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, he's still figuring it out a little bit, right?
Well, I was more talking about how Sam, not that, but how
Oh,
Sam
not that
said he,
comment. Gotcha,
not that,
gotcha,
but
gotcha.
Sam said he wore the dumb mask the one time he went to a wrestling show, so no one, the fans couldn't see who he was, and how he made the comment on Sam's show uh, to a legendary wrestler,
Yeah,
suggesting in front of the audience that wrestling, yeah, he's liked wrestling since he knew it wasn't real, and everyone that is like saying something
that's the
terrible.
yeah, that's the blasphemy of the wrestling industry. I'm pretty sure of. But yeah, they led to Sam talking about how Wu Kid arrives in style, and so he came in I think it might have been a white Lamborghini with the doors that come up on the sides, and I saw a picture with Sam on that. Did you see that?
It was pretty lit, as the kids say. It was a very nice car, one I would not, probably hardly ever see in my life.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yes, and the best part about that car is there was someone else who wanted a photo with it, and the driver jumped. People were jumping in front of Mr. Hot Dog who wanted a picture with Sam with the car, so he couldn't get the picture taken. Then he was about to, and the guy who the driver was just jumped in and drove off. So Sam enjoyed that Hot Dog couldn't get
I
the
would
picture.
love to see video or stills of that and his in his sadness in that episode of Hot Dog not getting that. I'd love to see Hot Dog sadness there.
It sounds like he was pretty deflated from Sam's account, which made me very happy. Speaking of things that have made me happy in the past, you gotta love what we've talked about this before, especially last week we were talking about the Schmoke and Dunkin' Donuts video. Like when Jim and Sam revisit something, you're gonna laugh because it's funny. The thing they're looking at is funny. Their comments they made before are funny, but they always find new angles. And I just love that Sam revisited D-Bag, his terrible tattoo that Sam the guys realized was a microphone to tribute and salute his time in radio, but the sound waves were coming out of the microphone.
Yeah, like the microphone that you might see here in front of me, it's called because I'm in this, whole audio thing, it's called a transducer. And which means is it takes audio waves and transduces them or changes them into electronic waves. So it goes into the microphone, gets electronic, and then a speaker pushes it back into air audio waves,
Right.
right? So I would think that a speaker would have the musical notes coming out of it and a microphone would have the musical notes going into it. So he had it completely backwards, and now it's on his body forever. And I think that's hilarious. So yeah, it was great to revisit that. I love when they
But
do that.
Chris, I'm confused. Are you saying that when you at no point when you've been producing a show did you have to shut down production because microphones sound just started coming out of microphones? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, that's the thing is if I ran this backwards and I would hear audio out of this and it wouldn't be very good. No, it actually does work. You can change
Oh,
the signal flow, like use a speaker as a microphone and use but that's not how it's meant to be. Yes, foolish, and I'm so glad it happened because it made me laugh too.
and that's not what the tattoo was suggesting.
No, no,
So
he's not that smart.
it was a terrible
Sorry.
tattoo. So something that was not terrible is there's these people that are coming on that are old fan favorites, and then they're kind of like coming back sooner. Florentine was on like 2 weeks ago, came back, I think, and came back on this week. And with his relationship with Jim, his voice, how funny he is, you can never, ever get enough Florentine, right, Chris?
No, he was great. Terrific. So many things discussed in such a short time. Just,
Yeah.
one day on there and hilarious. We're going to get to some of the other ones, but my favorite, absolutely favorite part of it was they were talking about, and I hope this is not his year line of the week, but they were talking about the ladies that threw the soup on the Mona Lisa, and they're talking about that, and they turned out that they found out that Mona Lisa was married to a Florentine gentleman, Florentine, and so they started doing Jim's his voice and using his terminology, and it was hilarious. He just riffed on that for a while. Both Sam and Jim did a great Florentine, so that was fabulous. What were some of the other things that Jim brought to the table?
Some good Taylor Swift
Yeah,
commentary about how they're, showing her too much in the box. And Sam had a good point. Like somebody just did a story on it or a tweet about that. They actually only show her for about 20 seconds. But he was in his commentary, Florentine was talking about what it's going to be like for them, on the road together after football. It might not be the dream that he
yeah.
thinks it is, but it still might be. I don't know.
It was hilarious. Yeah, he was talking about how Kelsey is gonna, if he's done playing football and she's doing all these gigs, he's like, let's go do this, let's do that. And Taylor doesn't do things like that during the times because she sings for 4 straight days or whatever. She needs to rest her voice. And funny talk about how that might transpire if they're together, which they should be,
Yeah.
when she starts touring again. But yeah, I mean, it was great. And they were talking about Florentine coaching his kids. Now, I know you do that, and I spent so many years coaching my son in baseball and basketball, and it is one of those special times. So you got to see kind of a nice side of Florentine, so much so that, Jim was like, I can't imagine Florentine of years ago now coaching his kid, even having a kid, right? Or getting married or that kind of stuff. He's such a degenerate. So that was cool.
That was very cool. And speaking of being a father, huge news for the Roberts family. Sam and his wife are expecting a third child, so there is no show next week. I might tell you later what you might be able to listen to during that week if you're a Jim and Sam fan.
Yeah, we have a
Yeah,
plan for you.
there might have
Yeah.
something.
So yeah, they're expecting, I think Sam revealed that it's the 8th of February. So that's
Oh,
next Thursday. So if you're listening before then, yeah, wish Sam good thoughts, I guess, during that everything goes well. But yeah, they're taking off the whole week. Very funny how the other guys in the studio were talking about when Jim and Sam are taking off, like Troy or Travis was like, don't you think that everybody should be having free vacation time? It's just not certain people because they're talking about the Supreme Court having a break. It's like, is it just one or two judges that goes on break, or do all the judges get to go? So that was really funny.
uh, something great about Jim and Sam that we've talked about since we've been doing the show is recommendations. And you hang in there with Jim's old movie. I love old movies. Like if I've seen it or if I know of it, it's up my alley. Like I'm someone that will watch an old movie. But a lot of the movies Jim references. I love Sam's got an eye. Usually I agree with him, especially for Netflix documentaries. Did you get a chance to see American Nightmare yet?
No, and
Oh,
see, I don't know how this is. I have a hard time sometimes when things are really real and being mistaken identity, or you didn't do something. I just feel like I'd be too on edge watching this. So I've heard it's been great. Did you get a chance to see it?
yeah, it's super good. Really enjoyed it. The
Is it
reenactments kind
tense?
of make
Is
it
it
feel not
tense?
too real. It's
Is
it's
it?
tense,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of misdirection. Like they do a really good job with that. I think it's how the case actually seemed to go. I don't want to give anything away. People got to check it out, but it's really good. Another good recommendation from especially
Yeah,
Sam.
they always knock those out of the park. And I probably will give it a try. I just got to get over being a wimp.
Speaking of misdirection, finally got to the bottom of the Mark Norman video mishap where he was on stage performing. Someone came on stage
I need
and
to interrupt you.
yeah,
I need to interrupt you and give you an apology
no,
because I
no.
I know, hey, comedy. I thought that it was real.
You did think it was real. I think a lot of
So
people did. That's why it blew up on it trended the Mark Norman video. So basically, through some sleuthing or reading, they discovered that it is part of the Mr. and Mrs. Smith reboots. I think it's gonna be on FX
it's
or
on Prime.
Prime. Prime. That's right.
Yeah.
Donald Glover has a big deal with Prime now. He's starring in that. So I don't understand like what this marketing campaign is, but hey, it trended. Mark Norman got paid, but he didn't know when they were coming. Just to finish,
Yeah,
we hadn't seen it. A
I think it
producer
said
comes
that
on, tell everyone to
yeah,
leave. The guy gets thrown
he knew
out.
something was going to happen, but he didn't know what. And I think it went
Right.
really extreme. So that's why we got a real kind of honest response from that because he didn't know when it was going to happen.
Right.
But somebody really was cryptic in talking about it, right? Or maybe misled people through, talk texting on their Twitter or the Instagram. You remember who that was?
Yeah, I think it might be one Robert Kelly. And
That was great.
I love, and this is like, it's good when you're a well-known comedian like Robert Kelly and Jim and anybody on the show, really, that you don't look at notifications after you tweet. Like, whatever. People say in your entertainment, you got to read the good with the bad.
Yeah.
People just don't pay attention. They put something out there that they want to put it out. Their fans will enjoy it. They don't look at it. There was a lot of grammatical errors in Bob's
It didn't make sense.
Talk texting Twix.
It was so funny because that's the tweet that or Twix or whatever you sent to me to prove like, look, this is a work because even Bob is doing that. And I even did that to you. I go, I don't understand what he's saying, man. I don't understand it. So I think a lot of people didn't understand it. So they got Bob on the phone, which was fabulous. What was Bob's response once they talked to him on the phone?
I think he was just like, yeah, you got me. I appreciate it. He was a little more forthcoming than when he asked the one comedian to go get his wallet and phone from the train track.
Right. Can you pick that up for me? Right.
Like he didn't understand what he did wrong with that. But he was honest. Like, yeah, sometimes I do that and I don't look at my notifications.
I talk text as well. And when I do that, there's a lot of misspellings and I never want to do it around my wife because she'll yell out the word penis to see if it goes into the text thing. And I was like, come on, can you please? I can't type as fast.
Right.
This feels like a gym moment. I can't type as fast, so I use my voice to text a lot. I send you our notes that we talk about when I'm listening, and they're riddled with typos that you're like, what is he trying to say?
Not too many. I've known some other talk texters, and my wife and I joke about some. Not too bad.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. I'm not that old. I
understand the context, and I appreciate you doing it. And I got to, real quick, before we wrap up this video talk, props to Mark Norman. So he knew something was coming, but he was still himself on stage and it seemed very real.
Right.
So I think he knew right away, but I mean, I guess you can call that acting. I guess he should do more acting work.
It convinced me. Yeah, it convinced me, and I thought it was real. So that just goes to show that I am not as sharp of a producer as I once thought I was.
I think you are. You just never know when a terrible marketing campaign is going to hit you.
That's true.
Also with Mark Norman, I may have had a very nice conversation with Mark yesterday. We're recording this on Friday, and later I might tell everyone what they could be on the lookout for.
I love it.
Yes.
Little insight into the world of Scott King, and there's some more coming for both of us. So yeah, there's some great things on the horizon for sure.
And we have a show here, have some insight into the world of soup protesters from listening to Jim and Sam. As always, with anyone who's not doing good things, I like Jim's solution. And that was, I believe, I don't know if he said hog tie, but basically like just pick them up and remove them from the place. And I always talk about how he has a mental illness. I think most people do. But Jim said, if you're mentally ill, he says that 8 years ago, mentally ill people, you take your medication or go in the lake.
Go in the lake. Yeah, this follows up on last week's conversation about the protesters that are on the street and they super glue themselves to barriers or the street itself. It's like, just rip them off, just rip their hands and take their skin with them, whatever. But no, they're cutting out the road or the barrier and carrying that with them. So yeah, I think it's along the same lines that he has of people that overstay their welcome when they're at a Airbnb and then squat. And he's done with those kind of people. And it goes back to how Jim is upset and angered by self-serving crybabies, right?
Yes, that is what it is. We had more AI talk on the show this week. They have become the premier show to discuss AI, in our opinion. A lot of always great AI breakdowns, especially of Future Jimmy. So this time is the AI George Carlin special. And they listened to it, and Will Sasso and his company, I believe, reportedly are being sued for putting this out by George Carlin's estate. Jimmy always says that George Carlin's one of his favorite comics ever, so he knows him very well. And when you listen to the special, the voice did not sound like him. I thought, Chris.
It had
It
a
was not as
little,
grizzly. I
yeah, it
thought.
had a little bit, but yeah, even somebody that didn't listen to George Carlin a ton, I could like this doesn't sound right. It just yeah, it didn't sound right. Interesting concept. I guess I've heard that maybe the AI part is I think they have like maybe an AI third chair, so to speak, on Will
Yeah,
Sasso's thing, right?
and I don't
So
even know if it's real. I think it might be a
yeah,
gag. So this might like be
could be a gag. Yeah,
this
it's
could end
really
up getting
cool.
thrown out. Like Will Sasso just recorded his voice with this. Like we'll
It
see. It
it
might be
led to
nothing.
a
I don't know.
very funny talk about a AI Jim Norton
Yes.
special, and he welcomes it. Great. I don't need to do it. It's like I'm lazy. Just put it
Right.
out there. I'll be fine. Right.
That'd be awesome. Speaking of future Jimmy, Neuralink now with Musk. I mean, say what you want about Elon, and Jim says this too. Like he's at the forefront of all these technological things. And what else did Jimmy have to say about the Neuralink?
Well, I'm not sure exactly all the things that Jimmy said, and I'll leave that to you. But I do think it's kind of remarkable how during the pandemic, many people were concerned that the vaccines were going to be, injected to us would have these micro, whatever they call bots that would be, these controlling us that way. And now here's somebody who might not be, as pro vaccine developing that, and people are like, yeah, let's do it. This is great. Can't wait to do this Neuralink kind of thing. But tell us what Jimmy's thoughts were.
I believe he thought that primary function of the Neuralink would be to help you remember where you parked your car, I believe, or left
Yeah.
your keys, or
Left your keys. It's like, no, I think they probably want to do a little bit more
something
than that.
else.
It's not just good where you could pretty much do that on an air tag, right? And find where your
Right, maybe
car
a
is,
little
but
more than that. And then
a
that
little
led
more.
to remembering where your keys are led to Alzheimer's talk. And there's Alzheimer's stories in the news because some research suggested that it's caused by taking growth hormone, and it's also said it's contagious. And this led everyone on the show to be concerned for Sam Wood Roberts because he took growth hormone when he was a kid. But
Right.
he should be in the clear, right, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, legitimately scared, and I thought about, oh no, and he was very funny. He's like, no, 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 it's fine because this took place after the time that I was already done taking everything, and it was after or reverse. It was before he started taking. Anyway, he's not concerned. The time frame doesn't match and line up with when he was taking growth hormone. But Jim was wishing that it was. You know how they
He
wish
was.
for death for both of those guys.
He wanted him to like microwave his shoe or something.
Exactly.
One of our favorite new guy. I mean, I guess new, probably in the last 2 years he's been coming on, at least Paul Versi. Uh
Very
tweeted
angry. He has a lot of emotion, has a lot
he's an
of
angry guy, and
yeah,
I think Travis was the one to make the case to kind of show that he's a bit of a clickbait tweeter
yeah,
or
yeah.
twixer because he put out a tweet from a CIA agent, I guess, talking about how cancer can be cured is how it was
Framed, yeah.
labeled.
Yeah.
And it was I listened to it when I was working out. The lecture was the worst lecture I've maybe ever heard, the most going on and on, droning. The guy had some S trouble pronouncing the S sound, but
Gosh.
as always, their breakdown was hilarious.
And this is how great they are and why this show is gold. Jim said, yeah, let's just give me just 10 seconds. I just want to hear what 10 seconds of this.
Yeah,
No, they did the whole 9 minute,
I meant
9 minutes of this guy talking, and they had a joke and something to notice on everything. And that's what they do best. They break things down in a hilarious way. And the S's and Norton, reminded us all how Anthony Cumia ruined Spock for him, because of the Astros with his dentures and that kind of thing. And this guy had some S problems and just a boring video, but made fun because of what those guys can do in the studio.
Speaking of making fun of guys and public figures, they were got talking about Rob Reiner's podcast. He did a special JFK podcast for the recent anniversary, and there was that Secret Service agent that Jim and Troy got very heated about because he
Yeah.
claimed to have or found a bullet and placed it on a gurney from JFK's assassination. And Jim still just letting him have it. I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Troy's the same way. I believe Troy said they get him in here. Let's ruin his last 20 minutes.
Yeah, he's an older
Like,
gentleman, as you can
he's an
imagine.
older gentleman now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's funny because Jim, sometimes forgets things that he brought up. So, Sam kind of, yeah, this is a guy, this is a Secret Service agent. And then you can see where it turns on with Jim and he just, oh, yeah, that guy, he should be, and he just goes off on it. So, yeah, it does. I love when they come back to stuff and it made sense with what Rob Reiner's doing. Sure.
Sure did. Something else that made sense. Credit, and I'm not used to saying this, credit to SiriusXM for putting the 15-second rewind back on the app. The hour made no sense at all. No sense.
No. And I have a question though. Mine hasn't updated. How do I get it to update?
I I don't know. That's a good question. Mine didn't do it till a couple days after everyone else was like, "Oh, great!" And they talk about it on the show. Mine was like 2 days later. So
Yeah, because I mean, mine still hasn't, and it is so, and my finger's so fat. So if I miss something, I have to drag it by there, and it goes, especially if I'm really far into the re-listen,
yeah,
it goes back. If I want to go back a minute, even it goes back 15. Then I go, okay, I'll come this way. And I go past it by 15.
it's not easy how it was. Yeah,
yeah. So I hope it is better, and if they did, kudos. Thank you so much. Now just get the cameras back in the studio.
I was just gonna say that still no video. So good,
Yeah.
we fixed the loop.
Yeah.
It's how it should be. It
Fix
shouldn't
the
have been touched
cameras
at
in
all.
the studio for crying out loud. There could
Still
be
kind of
some
hard to
important
find their
guests.
show. I feel like too. You'll see once yours updates. Like it's still kind of hard to just like
Yeah, I have
get
to
my
search
favorites. I don't know why I
Jim.
can't find it
I have to search Jim or Sam to get to
every time.
the Jim and Sam show. Then I have to launch that, and then I have to go find the past episodes. It's too hard. These guys are too good. Please make it easier, for crying out loud. All right, I'm off my soapbox.
No, I completely agree with you. A quick hit here for the new Dune sequel. They put out a popcorn container. Looks like something that Jim has bought.
You got to see it. You got to see it. A sandworm, but
Oh man,
used for other things.
Good wrap on that. It does look like something else. Little Jimmy stories.
Our favorite.
Maybe my favorite thing ever to come out of the O&A universe. I know I'm not alone. Revisited Chris, but we learned some new things. I could put a name to the kind of picture in my head I have, and I have like a picture of Jim
Oh
going
yeah,
to the lake with this guy. It's dark, you can see the water.
yeah. You can see he's going to see devil in there, and then something's going to happen.
You're supposed to be able
Jim
to see the
sees it.
devil, who I don't know if you remember. This happens to be the guy's father. We found out this week the guy's name is Tony.
Tony
Jim to the lake.
which is great to put there. Tony said that after he sees that Jim will want to make love to him, which is always a payoff when you get to see his father, the devil, in the lake.
And how did Jim respond to that when he said that?
Yeah, he told him no in so many words, right?
And he said, "I'm going to kill you," because Jim was.
Yeah, I'm going to kill you. Him. Yeah, this is when Jim was not sober, and the guy probably let him go. But yeah, it's weird stories. We talked about that last week or the week before about how many weird things happened in growing up in the 70s and 80s for sure.
Absolutely. And the other new one, and feel free to comment on social or in the YouTube comments if I'm wrong. I don't remember hearing about the pig stickers. They would pop 2 tires with pig stickers on one side of the car. Like you can kind of move if you have like one flat or like opposing wheels.
Replace
like
it, right.
Your car's like,
they were deviants, I'll tell you. And it was great because Black Adam called in with all these stories that he's heard and just said, is this true? Is this true? Is this true? And it was perfect. It's like if we did, it's like, okay, we've heard this. Tell us about it. Black Adam's great. We got to get Black Adam on our podcast here for sure. So Black Adam, if you listen to us, reach out. We want you here. But yeah, he gave some great stories about the oil, throwing the oil on the dashboard of open windows. And Jim talked about the one that he wanted to do. One of his friends, I can't remember the friend's name, wanted to get the hot oil out of the car that they're riding in to throw it on somebody on the street.
I think it was Mike. I think Mike is the one who wanted to do that.
There you go. So
you mentioned Black Adam.
Yeah.
Chris, and you remind me of something. And I do not mean to pry or stir anything. I thought he sounded a little. He didn't have his Black Adam voice. He called in twice, I think, this week. His voice sounded a little odd. I hope he's doing okay. I don't know if anyone else knows this. Not prying, not suggesting anything, but Adam's awesome.
He's been great over the last, I would say, probably last 6 months of him calling in has been fantastic because he gets to the point. He knows the show well, and he gets him. It's like Miguel when Miguel calls in, and Miguel had a great call. We'll get to. But when Miguel calls in or tweets, Twix, whatever, Instagram shares, it's good stuff. It gets right to the point, and they're great shares. So definitely love those guys.
Speaking of little Jimmy pranks, a great prank apparently a lot of adults do because people are calling in is setting the alarm. Jim discovered the alarm was set in his hotel, and this kind of sprung into conversation that people do set the alarm in hotels as a prank for like 3 in the morning, like a ridiculous time. I
I
don't think it's
never,
ever happened to me, but it's
yeah,
hilarious.
I've never thought about that too. And it is a great prank. I think I think his alarm, he came in talking that morning that his alarm wasn't set and had some weird things. Oh no, it was his phone wasn't charged. He thought he plugged his phone and charged overnight and got up and it was infuriating. You got 10% because you didn't plug in your phone and charge it up there. But yeah, they talked about that and they said that someone else called in and said that maybe the people that clean the rooms are instructed to unplug the alarm clock
Right.
and then plug it back in and that clears it. But who sets the time? You know,
Well,
who sets the time? So maybe that doesn't work. So I think Sam made the point that to keep trying because if one out of the 100 times it, works, it's worth it because it's a great gag.
it's an
Now,
amazing
I just don't
gag.
want it to happen to me.
Same here. That would drive me crazy. Finally get to sleep in the hotel room with my children. One of the callers, this is a thing that a lot of callers called in on and were great. Someone said a housekeeping employee was fired for doing this. She's had enough with the customers at the hotel to start doing this. So we have Airplane Jimmy. We have many Jimmys. We love them all. There's a new one. I love when we get a new one. Trucker Jimmy. He has this whole picture of his life if he was a trucker. And there's something above all else, not surprising that he's the most excited about, Chris. Isn't that right?
Yeah, of course. Jim talked about if he was a trucker, he'd be 400 pounds and he gets it because he'd be eating all the time and not a chance to work out that much. So he loves the cabs and he really loves the trucker cabs that have beds in them and have many, microwaves and just built out. And he's most concerned if they have a toilet. And he's excited when they do have a toilet so much that he'd like to try one out, right?
Yes, he would. He just loves that it would be right there. It'd be so convenient. That would be great. I hope we hear more like Jim playing with these scenarios of him being a
Oh,
trucker. I could see it. Quick hit here. Voss called in. I love when he calls in. He called in to complain about Taylor Swift, and I think that's when Sam mentioned like he only showed up for 20 seconds, the old man. And yeah, we always talk. I feel like I get you to agree that he creates good radio, but you
he
do not like
does.
the guy.
He does. It was funny for me because he called in there talking about stuff, and then they went on a tangent, and Voss is still there, and they're going off, and they're talking for maybe a couple minutes without referencing Rich, and hear Rich go, but he's trying to jump in there, but he's on the phone, and these guys are just going off. And so for me, that was funny because like, yeah, Voss is trying to get in on the conversation, and they're just
Right,
plowing
right.
through. I don't know if they forgot that he was there, but then they circled back, and Voss had some great stuff about talking about doing a private show in how he was treated, and maybe because of the jokes people didn't like too well, but it was good. It was good. So yes, you do convert me. Voss makes good radio. Whatever.
That is fair. Stephen Sanjay, as Jim
Yes.
says, was the other guest this week, and he was. I'll probably talk a little bit more about it when we do best guest, but he was great, and he kind of had the insight to Jim and Nikki before a lot of people because he helped Jim with the ring,
He
and
was the first one probably that knew that Jim was going to get married, other than Nikki and Jim,
right,
right?
right,
Yeah, because he had to get
the
the ring.
consultant.
Even before Nikki, probably. I mean, they knew they were probably getting married, but before the proposal happened, so he was the one to do that. But Jim doesn't always make the best choices when it comes to jewelry, as we saw on his YouTube channel, right? The
Yes, there were some
darn
emerald
emerald
earrings.
earrings. Just, and that's a great video. Please check out their YouTube
Great,
channel. It's
yeah,
really funny.
yes,
But Steven, of course, Steven's there because he is the best and the biggest advertiser for the Jim and Sam show. And so they're giving him a little rub to come on and talk to that stuff, but he's not a bad guest.
he's
He's
very
very
good.
interesting and he
Yeah.
had a lot to say about, talking at Google and all the things, and his marketing campaigns were fabulous. He's a smart guy. And I liked hearing what he had to say. So he wasn't one of those boring stiffs like you remember in Wayne's World where they had the guy
Sponsor,
on,
yeah.
yeah, talking about the coin operated arcade and that kind of stuff, and they're making fun of him because he was a boring guest. No, Steven was great.
Yeah, I think, and I'll just say now, I think the other thing I like a lot about him is there's no BS. He loves their show. He keeps talking about Chipper. I love that he calls Chip Chipper, and he
He's a
has a
true
picture of
fan.
Chip in his fancy, famous jewelry store. He's got a picture of Chip on the wall. So I love Steven Singer. He is an interesting, good guest, and I appreciate how he likes
And
the
he's
show.
been there forever. He's been a
Yeah,
supporter of those guys forever. So he knows the show very well. And he knows, all the back behind the scenes antics as well as the relationships there. So, he gave them such a credit too. He said, all the shows, this one is one of my favorites. Jim and Sam have this great rapport and you can tell, and it's great. I
yeah.
love it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was
And
cool.
maybe another guest for us in the future. I'd love to have
That
Steve.
would be fun. That would be
Uh,
a lot of fun. Sure.
Speaking of guests and ones we've had, Miguel, great call. Miguel from
Yeah.
LA, Jim and Sam Dank memes on Instagram, amazing account. Miguel, as I've done, I've been guilty of this in the past too. I followed a poster group that Jim gets the posters from, and when there's a new poster, sometimes I look to see if Jim's in on the bidding. Miguel caught Jim buying 2 Kiss posters during Wednesday's show and called in
During
about
the
it
show.
on
During the
Thursday.
show.
And Jim's like,
Yeah.
hey, to be fair, it was during a break. And then Travis found it probably on Facebook too. And altogether, the 2 posters ran Jim, I believe, a little north of 1K. So he's still at it.
No, he's still at it, and he's trying to hide it from us. No, he's not. He doesn't care. But it's just so funny that sleuths like yourself, Miguel had that great and shared with everybody on there. Miguel's great. I love his insight, man, and he asks
He's
the
great.
questions that we want to ask.
Some more new, fresh information in Jim and Sam universe. Not only did we find out that Sam's dad's name is Jerry, but that Sam calls him Jer Bear.
Yeah, Jerry Roberts. We love it because they're talking about Jerry Roberts' representative, and there was a lot of fun with that in talking about Congressman Jamal. What's his last name?
Ooh,
I can't remember.
yeah,
Whatever.
Yeah.
He's a guy that pulled the fire alarm or
Right.
didn't pull the fire alarm. Who knows?
Yeah.
And they got into, and I'm not sure if this is down on our list a little bit, but they got into how he has a lot of sonnets about 9/11 and all these other things, and they came to life, and they read some of those, and they were god awful. But yeah, going back to our original thing, Jerry Roberts. Of course, his name is Jerry. It's got to be one of the names that has strength and is one of you guys that you talk to. Of course, it was great to get the name Jerry Roberts.
It's the name of someone who would email a congressman to let them know they don't approve of them, even if they're just replying back to the mass email that probably doesn't receive replies.
Exactly.
But it's awesome. We mentioned guys are off next week.
Right.
And maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that after we do our line of the week. So up next, best guest, we mentioned Florentine and Singer and kind of what stood out from their interviews. Bobby and Voss, they called in kind of short. I don't know if we're going to count them as guests this week. So who's your best guest out of Florentine and Mr. Sanger, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, Steven was great, brought a lot to the table, but Florentine knocked it out of the park. He had so much things to share. He really just sits in and is a great kind of third mic a little bit. So yeah, Florentine was great, and you can't get over his voice. I mean, if you pick a voice for a radio show, even if he's not that funny, that'd be the perfect voice. So yeah, them doing the Florentine voice that I talked about earlier was great. So Florentine gets my vote. How about you?
I always love Florentine. I agree with your breakdown, but I feel like we just had Florentine. I'm used to him. He's like a regular to me, but I'll always listen to him and enjoy him. Steven Singer, just like I've heard him be good on the show before. I was just surprised by his storytelling, his knowledge of the show and Jim's characters. I thought he was great. I really enjoyed listening to that interview with Steve.
I don't fault you at all for that selection. Like we talked about, he was great. He was great, and someone who's not typically in that scenario. So yeah, fan of it. He did a fabulous job.
Absolutely. Now, do you have 2 finalists for Line of the Week? Getting the Line of the Week now, or you got just one?
I just got one, and it's very long. So please bear with me because it takes a little setup. This is, they were talking about earlier. Sam was talking about the Taylor Swift thing, right? And the whole Travis Kelce and all that stuff. And Sam was talking about, well, first of all, they're saying like how, Taylor, it's hard to avoid the cameras because, Florentine was giving her a hard time that she's right in the front row, and it's hard to avoid the cameras when you're at those events because, you're just trying to enjoy yourself. And Sam said, well, like Taylor, when I'm at one of the wrestling events, I know where to da-da-da. So he's kind of comparing himself to Taylor, and he got a lot of grief from the guys about doing that. And so later on, they're finding out what Taylor does on an off day. And she mentioned that, her feet are killing her. And when she walks around, her feet go, crunch, 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 because she's been wearing heels all day, right? And she has no interest in getting out of bed. And Jim said, when I was doing 4 shows at the Comedy Works, and Sam's like, wait, now you're comparing yourself to Taylor? Your 4 little shows at the Comedy Works is like her doing her thing, right? And Sam said, yeah, you can't do that. And he goes, yeah, but although your feet probably do go crunch, crunch, crunch after wearing heels all day too. So there's a line that Sam finally got. It's like, yeah, your feet still go crunch, crunch, crunch because you wear heels all day too, Jim. So that was good.
Awesome.
Not a great payoff, but just the whole thing of of turning it around on him was fabulous. You got a line?
You provided crucial context. That line was killer this week. Yeah, it had to do. It came from when new intern Anthony. We'll see if he gets how about maybe movie Anthony or something. We'll see if he gets.
He needs a nickname. Yeah, because you can't have Anthony on the show. It's weird.
There's been a lot of Anthonys. There's been a lot of Anthonys. They all have good nicknames. He needs one. But no, he was great. And when they were talking about old movies, they got to talking about old cartoon characters. There was some Popeye talk, and somehow in the middle of the Popeye talk, Sam's former phimosis came up. And then Jim goes, his D looked like Popeye's forearms.
It did. That's exactly. Yeah, it did. What a great line.
Just amazing. And, we got something very special that we're both really pumped about for the week off. And I want you to tell everyone what that is, Chris.
Oh, well, you're giving me the honor. That's great. That's fabulous, man. Yeah. So the boys are off and we have probably a good get there. We have Jim Norton and Miss Nikki Norton joining the town square. So yeah, we have a great interview coming up with them. They're very generous with their time. Got them together both. We talk about so many things. I don't want to give too much away. We'll have a couple of Instagram reels out there to wet your whistle, but hopefully that'll be coming out early next week. So look for that because it was a fabulous time with Jim and Nikki. What do you think? What was your favorite part of it, if you can recall, right? Without giving too much away.
I'll just, hold on. Something might be, hold on. I got to check the terms of service on the interview. Jim had such a great breakdown for the terms of service. And yeah, just getting to know Nikki, like watching their YouTube series is great. So it's cool to talk to them about that. Like when they realized they wanted to do it, why they're doing it. Jim was like very, really interesting and candid as he always is about, kind of teasing that he's marrying a trans person. I think that he was maybe even, I don't know if he said he was dating one before, but married to one. And it kind of the slow rollout of Nikki. There was a lot of purpose to it. And Jim really got to the bottom of that on our show. And they were awesome. And I will say, after this special episode, I'm working on another Forbes story about Jim and Nikki's YouTube series. And I may have talked to Mr. Mark Normand for it. And I'll be working on that for the next 2 weeks or so. So stay tuned for that. But our interview was awesome. And you did a good job, Chris. I should say great job. And as you always do with our show. So thanks for everything you do. And thanks, guys, for watching and listening.
Absolutely. And thank you. Yeah, there's so much great things happening for us in the town square. And we appreciate everybody's support. We got this great interview with Jim and Nikki. You're putting together a terrific article, and everybody loves those so much because there's a lot of inside baseball, as we say, stuff that true fans will get. And so please keep your eye out for that. A lot of stuff to keep your eye out for when you visit the town square.
Thanks for watching and listening to the Jim and Sam Town Square. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell, not Doug Bell, so you don't miss an episode.
And if you're just listening to the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it.